Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn, and today I am flipping the Spellbinders October 2023 club kits. Here's a look at all of the cards that I'll be creating in this video. There are going to be a lot, so this will be a long video. Feel free to skip ahead to whichever cards you would like to see me make. But in today's video, I'll be featuring the BETTERPRESS club, the Glimmer of the Month, the wax seal of the month, the 3D embossing folder of the month, the small die of the month, large die of the month, and even a bit of the card kit of the month. The only club kit that is actually not shown at all in my video today is the clear stamp and die of the month, so I'll definitely be crafting with that later, and I will be sure to add that to my Spellbinders playlist when that's ready, and I'll probably craft some more with the card kit of the month as well. As per usual, this video features at least one flat, one layered, one interactive, and one pop-up card. Okay, so let's get started with my flat card. Now, this card is going to feature my the BETTERPRESS plate, and I got really excited about a technique that I shared in a previous video just a few days ago. In fact, it's this idea of doing some offset glimmering right on top of a letterpressed or a BETTERPRESSed design. So I'm going to start off by pressing this design into some 100% cotton card. And I thought that this design would work well with this technique because there are some heavier line weights with this. And so there's going to be some of those thicker lines, which I think will actually glimmer a little bit better. And so that's that's what I was looking for in terms of, a good BETTERPRESS design to practice this technique with. And when I tried this for the first time, I was using the hinge mechanism for glimmering. And the challenge that I found in doing that was lifting up the plate to put the foil in between the BETTERPRESS plate and the cardstock, because inevitably it would still shift around a little bit as I was lifting and putting it back down and then finally getting it onto the glimmer machine. I tried a couple of other different techniques to try to get this to line up and to be able to do it consistently. And I'll share with you where I ended up with that, because for me, I think I can get this to work rather consistently. So I will share with you where I landed with this. But if you discover something that works really well and very consistently, please do leave comments and let me know, because I am always eager to learn new techniques as well. If you're new to BETTERPRESSing, it is a really, really fun system that Spellbinders has, and there are these special BETTERPRESS plates. They are different thickness, so the plates will work in your glimmer machine, but we've been advised not to put glimmer plates or cutting plates onto the BETTERPRESS. And the idea is that this metal plate is specially coated and specially designed to take ink and then press that ink into cardstock. The cardstock that Spellbinders recommends is 100% cotton card, and it does look beautiful on their cotton card. I happen to use Crane's Electra that I buy on Amazon because it's more affordable, and especially for trying out different techniques, because I actually went through quite a few panels that just to learn and try different ways of doing this offset glimmering, and so I did end up having to toss quite a few unsuccessful attempts. So the Crane's Electra makes it very affordable for me to do these sorts of experiments. What I found worked for me was to do the pressing first, then because it does deboss into your paper and leave like a recess, it's easy to line up the BetterPress plate exactly into the same location. But once I get it into that location, what I do is I just nudge the cardstock a smidge, like just ever so slightly, and holding it tightly, I place it onto my glimmer machine, but I'm using the grid lines on my glimmer machine to line up the corners of my card. And that way I can lift the cardstock up completely and get my foil down onto the plate. And then I know exactly where to line my card panel back up, because it should line up exactly with the grid lines that I noted earlier. And that seemed to work for me much, much more consistently than anything else that I tried. And so you can see how that looks here, where I've inked in black with the BetterPress, and that adds this, by offsetting it, by nudging my cardstock a smidge, that makes the BetterPress design a bit of a drop shadow for my glimmered sentiment. So I'll do that again. This is BetterPressed, I line it up exactly, and then I just nudge my paper over a little. And the trick is really holding the two tightly and then lining up the corners of your cardstock, or the edges of your cardstock panel with the grid lines on the glimmer machine. And that way I can lift that up, put the foil down, and I know exactly where that cardstock needs to go. The plate isn't going to move. And so this worked really well for me, and I don't know why it took so long to come up with it, but I did burn through a few panels before finally arriving at this. And I wanted to do it a second time on camera just so that you can see that I can replicate this, and it's neat. It's really fun. It's just a cool look, and I like this. I like this a lot, and I like it even if it's not a perfect foiling, because it's just part of that look that I think is kind of cool. So those are the panels that I pressed and glimmered, and I will turn those into cards. So to finish up my flat card, my definition of a flat card is your card base plus one layer of cardstock at most. So to adhere to my definition, what I'm going to do is take the BetterPress ink that I pressed with, and I just directly swipe that onto my card base to add a bit of a matte layer, because I like to frame my BetterPress designs. I'm not going to add more to it than that, but it does help, I think, to add a bit of a dark frame around it. And so that's what I did with that particular card. With the next two, I did use as a matte layer solid color cardstock in black. Though you could take the same black BetterPress ink and do the exact same thing. I just thought it would be easier to use cardstock, but that does technically make these next two cards, technically by my definition, layered cards, because it's two layers of cardstock and not just the one. But the whole idea behind flat cards is really easy mailers that will go through the US Postal Service without extra postage. Now I've got quite a few layered cards today. So the last two that I showed probably are technically my layered cards as well, but this one is going to feature the 3D embossing folder. The design of this 3D embossing folder is gorgeous, so I didn't want to add too much more to it than the design itself. So all I'm going to do is just add a sentiment to this so that you can really appreciate the 3D design of it. It's gorgeous. It's kind of like, it reminds me a little bit of like a folk Christmas tree. and I pulled a sentiment from the Mix and Match Holiday Greetings. I think this was released last year, and it's just really nice. I don't believe it comes with shadow layers for the word dies. So what I did was die cut twice, and again did a little bit of that offsetting. So the first layer is black and the top layer is gold. And I used the black as a little bit of a drop shadow. So when I attached the gold layer on top, I just nudged it a little bit. So kind of similar to the BETTERPRESS and glimmering that I did with the offset glimmering. It's kind of that look. Now my next layered card is going to feature the wax seal of the month and the glimmer of the month, but I'm going to focus the video on a couple of wax seal techniques that I didn't think of. These are ones that I saw on Instagram, and unfortunately I should have bookmarked it so that I could refer back to it in this video. I'm going to go back and try to find it again. I couldn't find it initially, but I'm going to try a little bit harder and link to that person's profile in the description box if I can find it. But the technique that I saw in her video was to pour a bit of wax onto your wax seal design, scrape that wax off so that the only wax that remains is in the recess, the carved area of your wax seal, and then drop that into a second color of wax. And that effect is really cool. I'm having a hard time perfecting this technique because I don't think I'm scraping fast enough. My wax is cooling so fast. And so I'm going to play with this technique a little bit more. I did a little bit more off camera of heating up the wax seal head a little bit so that it's warm. And that way when I pour the hot wax onto it, I have a little bit more time to scrape that wax off. So I'm still practicing at this one, but I thought I should share it just to show you the idea if you didn't see. And I'll try to find that Instagram profile and link to it in the description box below so that you can see how it should be done. Because in her, I think they were reels on Instagram, they look perfect. So that was the first method. Technique that I wanted to share. And I think both of these techniques are from the same person, but I'm not 100% certain because I didn't note the name. So shame on me. Sorry for that. But with this technique, the idea is to pour a small puddle, enough to cover your design, but you don't have to go too much wider than the design itself. And then what I do is I just rotate the seal around to cut the edge off. So what I'm trying to do is just push it all the way down through to the bottom and cut off that excess wax from the outer edge. And so I've got one layer of wax already there, basically covering the entire wax seal. And then I'm going to pour a second puddle of wax and drop that design right into that second puddle in a contrasting color. And if you caught my video where I think I titled it something like, turning your wax seal on its head, I was going for this look. I was going for the look of having a perfect border all the way around your seal design. And I approached it from a totally different way of doing it, but this gives you a much more precise circle, and I love it. And it's not hard to do. So I thought that was a lot of fun. So here are the different seals that I played around with, and I like to have a couple of different options as I think about my card. Here I've got the glimmer of the month that I glimmered with one of the satin pastel glimmer foils. Really, really soft, very, very lovely. And I've got some coordinating solid color cardstock that I will use as a matte layer behind that panel, that glimmered panel. And then I'm just going to finish this off with one of my wax seals. And I did end up going with one of the earlier ones that I made actually, where I did the method of scraping off the wax and putting it into a second color. I want to keep it nice and soft, so I actually steered clear from the darker coral reddish waxes that I made. And I just used some 3D Kalal glue gel to attach this to my card. And that's going to be it. Next, on to my interactive card. This card is going to feature the small die of the month. And this Santa is so jolly. I just love him. He's got this big belly. He's very stylized because he's got like really tiny feet and small hands, but a big belly and a big head. It's really adorable. And assembly is pretty easy. As with all Spellbinders dies, they are just so well designed. So the die plates themselves are well organized, such that for the most part, I've pretty much always found this to be true. If a die plate includes several different die cuts, it generally makes sense that all of those things are cut from the same color. So not only does that make it kind of efficient for you to do your die cutting, but also if the pieces and the shapes look a little bit unrecognizable, it can be a little bit of a clue or a hint where things go if you do recognize some of the other pieces. So for example, there's a die plate that has the beard, the mustache, and the eyebrows. Well, the eyebrows, maybe you could mistake those for something else, but the mustache is a pretty distinct shape, and so knowing that one of those shapes is a mustache, then it kind of is a little bit of a hint that the other shapes on that die plate are also some kind of facial hair. So that really helps. And similarly, there's another die plate that has the white trim on the hat, the Santa's jacket, and the boots and stuff like that. And so again, that's another hint that all of those would make sense to be the same color. And so I love that the dies are organized that way. Now, when it comes to actually layering the pieces on top of each other, what you'll find is the lower layers have debossed lines that are an indicator of, the shape that should get layered on top of it. The thing with this one, though, is that it's very stylized. There are a lot of debossed areas that really add a lot of detail to this Santa. So one thing to note with this set in particular is that there are the debossed lines for positioning the layers that go on top of it. Those are pretty light. And the deeper debossed lines are more for style, for extra detail and dimension on the Santa. So that's a little bit different from some of the other designs, because this set has a lot of debossed design to it, which I love. It just adds a lot of dimension and detail to the Santa. Now, I am going to actually make Santa dance. So I'm going to turn Santa into a dancing Santa, and he hasn't been designed to be dancing. And actually, last year there was a dancing Santa set. So if you want a die set that has been actually designed to dance, then if it's still available for sale, then that is an option. But it's easy enough to convert this to a dancing mechanism. Last year's advent calendar came with a die set, a die that is just a circle, but it's a nice small circle. And it's small enough so that it can actually still be hidden underneath Santa's beard. So what I'm going to do is die cut this circle aperture out of the body, out of Santa's body, but I'm being careful to line it up where I know Santa's beard is going to cover it. And how I know that is because there's actually a deboss line that shows me the edge of where Santa's beard should be positioned. So that circle worked out perfectly. It's large enough to where I can fit a foam circle dot in there, and that's what this hanging mechanism or dancing mechanism is going to hang on in order to swing back and forth on that foam dot. But it's still small enough that it can be hidden, because we want to make sure that that foam dot is hidden and is completely closed off so that the body doesn't fall off of the foam dot. And I did die cut the body and lined up that aperture to get a second piece, because with dancing mechanisms, a lot of times they swing more smoothly if that bottom section, the section that is meant to swing back and forth, if there's a little bit more weight there. So that's why I die cut a second layer. You wouldn't need that if you weren't making a dancing card. Santa is holding a little flag, a little banner, and what's really cool is that this month the add-on is for this small die of the month, and it's an additional stamp set that has sentiments that you can stamp onto this wavy banner. And what's nice is that the stamp itself is already curved. So you don't have to try to take a straight sentiment and then match the curve of the banner. So I thought that's nice, but that's always an option though, to just take a regular sentiment, and if you want to try to kind of match the curve on the banner, just attach it to your acrylic block or your stamping platform, and then just nudge it to try to match the wave or the curve of the banner. The other bit of detail that I love about this set is that the hand that's holding the banner flag, there's actually an additional die cut layer that is his fingers kind of gripping or wrapping around the banner that he's holding. So it's just fabulous. All of this attention to detail is just really, really wonderful. So to now start to assemble my card, I have all of the major pieces. I haven't yet attached the arm that's holding the banner flag, because I want to be able to position that once I see how much space Santa takes up on my card. He's rather large. He's really a nice focal image. And I'm going to start with just a couple of mats and layers. So some red cardstock. This bit of pattern paper is from the card kit of the month this month, and it's this really nice candy cane stripe pattern paper, which is really lovely. And I'm gonna cut that down as a background layer. And Santa is really big. Santa ends up being nearly the entire height of my card. So if I measure him from the top of his hat to the bottom of his foot, it's about 4¼ inches tall. That's just Santa himself. And then just depending on how you position your banner flag, that flag could extend even beyond the top of Santa's head. So he's a really nice focal image. He's a good size. And so what I did was just sort of position this so that I can make sure there's still room for that banner flag. And I put a foam dot where I want the body to hang. And my foam dot does have adhesive on it, but I still put a little bit of liquid adhesive, just a drop, to really make sure it's a nice, permanent, strong hold. And then I took off the liner on the foam dot and put the head on top. And that sort of locks the body so that it can't fall off the foam dot, but it's free to swing. Now, I had a hard time getting it to really swing, and I thought maybe it was because my foam dot was too big and there wasn't enough room for the body to swing back and forth. So I just pulled it up and I put a smaller foam dot. And that didn't fix it. So, as I was carefully kind of inspecting, what I'm doing is I'm brushing on a little bit of baby powder because I thought maybe there was some stickiness because I did add that liquid adhesive. I thought maybe some of that liquid adhesive oozed out and it was causing some stickiness. So, couple of different troubleshooting ideas if you have similar issues where you're just not getting that swinging motion back and forth. Ultimately, what did the trick was to add some more weight. So remember I said with dancing mechanisms, you need the portion that's going to swing back and forth to have a little bit of weight to it so that you have that momentum for it to swing back and forth. To add extra weight, I just glued a penny behind the body of Santa, and that fixed it. That did the trick. So all I need to do now is just some final decorating. I took some of the embellishments that come with the card kit of the month. There's a really nice mix here. I actually thought that I might make a shaker card for my interactive card in this video, but instead I just couldn't resist making Santa dance a little bit because his legs are already positioned like he's walking, and so I thought that would be really perfect. Okay, so moving on to my last card. This is going to be my pop-up card, and it features the large die of the month. This die is gorgeous, or die set, I should say. It has this really lovely, very large house, and it's got this really unique, ornate design built into the roof of the house that features a lot of winter foliage and flowers. When I look at this die set, though, I see a gingerbread house, so that's what I'm gonna make. What I did was I took the roof piece and using a white gel pen, just drew on some snow. With the house itself, I just did some partial die cutting, mostly focused on getting the house and very little of the foliage. And then I just lined up those edges so that I can trim off all of the foliage. And that way I don't have any of that showing, and I have a very simple roof that I can then decorate with some candies. So one of the die plates in the set is just a lot of little circles, and it's actually meant to be the holly berries that are part of that foliage built into the roof. And so instead of using it as holly berries, I've die cut it out of some faux glitter cardstock, and I'm going for a look of those being like those little gumdrop candies. And it's not exactly the same shape of those as those gumdrops, but I think it kind of gets the idea across. And so I've added those as just a line of them. I'm gonna add to the top of my roof. And I didn't think about it, but I bet, I could have repurposed a die in this set to create a little chimney too. So that'll be something that I try for next time. But I had a lot of fun decorating this, especially just drawing in some of that snow. I think it gives it that nice sort of icing look. In this die set, there's also this white picket fence that you can add, and you can actually make this sort of like a 3D look too, because it has some score lines and a little glue tab. I actually cut the glue tab off from both sides of this fence. And I'm gonna add this fencing in front of my house. And so when I do the pop-up, it's going to feature the house and as well this kind of white picket fence in front of it. And before I got too far along, I actually did give a little bit of thought into what I would do on the front of the card, and I'm gonna keep it really simple. I found this gingerbread man. He's actually from the large die of the month from earlier this year, July of 2023. And I thought it would be nice to feature the gingerbread man on the outside, kind of giving a little bit of a hint that, and making sort of that connection of gingerbread from the outside to the inside of the card. The sentiment is coming from Snowflake Wishes, which is a stamp and die set combination from BB Cameron's Snowflake collection that came out earlier this year. And that's going to be it for the outside of my card. I'm going to keep the outside of my card really, really simple. And so I did a little bit of a dry fit here, but which is what you're looking at is actually the inside, but where those pieces will be used is actually on the front of the card, and you'll see that in a little bit. For the scene on the inside of the card, I did pull a piece of pattern paper from a I think it was an a la carte kind of kit earlier this year, I think, or it might have been from the Christmas kit last year. I can't remember now, but it's really lovely because it has a nice snowflake pattern, and I thought it would be a really good backdrop to the little scene that I'm creating with this pop-up card. So I'll get that attached first, because on top of this, I will glue my pop-up mechanism, but I definitely want this backdrop down first so that I don't have to worry about trying to fit it around my pop-up mechanism. The pop-up mechanism is going to be pretty simple, and I will I'll show you how I made that. It's just from a bit of scrap paper, but if you need dimensions, it does end up being 1 inch wide strip that I'm using. And then what I did was I scored this at 3/4 of an inch, 1.5 inches, 2 1/4, and then I cut it off at 3 inches. So basically you have 4 sections of with each section measuring 3/4 of an inch. The width doesn't really matter too much, and to be honest, the 3/4 of an inch doesn't matter too much either. It just depends on how far away you want this from the back of your card, and the height of it just really needs to get covered by the gingerbread house. So these dimensions work just fine, but if you have other scraps that are other sizes, you can work with what you have. I put glue down on the one of the 3/4 inch sections, and I'm placing that so that it's right up against the fold of the card, but doesn't cross over it or extend beyond it. Then I'm going to fold it in half completely when I go to attach this. You want to only put glue on that last 3/4 of an inch section. So basically, if you've got your 4 sections, the first section has glue that got glued to the bottom of our card, and the last section has glue. So the 2 middle sections don't have any glue on them yet. And I fold that in half and close my card down right on top. So that ensures that this card will close down flat, and they just find their location and they will open up so that you have this pop-up. And now this is how we're going to get our gingerbread house to stand up. And I'm not going to glue it down just yet. What I want to do is actually first completely decorate my house so that while it's still flat, I can burnish things a little bit more smoothly and really make sure everything is well stuck down. So in this set, there is a door and an awning that you can add over top of your door. There are some dies for the window on the house as well as windows on your door too, if you want to add a window through your door. There's also a word die, which I don't end up using, but it says Noel, so you could add that too. I think that sentiment works a little bit better as the die plate has been designed with all of the beautiful winter foliage and flowers. I don't think it works quite as well with my gingerbread house, which is a little bit more kind of fun and whimsical. And I'm going back in with, I initially went in with a white gel pen to add my snow detail to the roof and house, but now I'm going to go in with my Nuvo Simply White crystal drop and add a little bit more dimension, add a little bit more snow to the awning, to the roof, and as well to these evergreen trees, which are as well part of this month's large die of the month. So you do get quite a lot in this month's large die of the month. But to get more candies onto my gingerbread house, I did have to raid my stash. So I've got the candy cane that came from the Dancing Deer, which released last year, 2022, I believe. And that turned out to be a really nice scale candy cane. So that's where I got the candy cane from. The peppermint candies actually came from last month. So last month there was an add-on to the large die of the month for the cupcakes. And so I took the peppermint candy from that. And I might not have mentioned it, but the gingerbread cookie that's going to go onto the front of my card, that was actually from an earlier large die of the month. That was July of 2023. So I'm using these peppermint candies as my windows for my house. The candy cane I'm going to add to the front picket fence later. So you'll see that added to the scene later. Now, to attach my house, I'm just going to put glue on the panel that's facing forward from our pop-up mechanism. And again, I just position my house so that it's right up against that pop-up mechanism, and I close my card down. That way it ensures that everything is going to ultimately fold flat. You can put this style of card through the mail. It might end up being a little bit extra bulky, and or it might trigger the weight surcharge, because it might actually end up getting to be over an ounce, which would also trigger extra postage. So so that's something to be aware of. This might cost a little bit extra to send through the mail. So with the picket fence, as I mentioned, I did cut off the glue tabs, and I'm going to add that as a bit of a foreground scene to my gingerbread house, and I'm going to put the trees on the outside of the fence. To pop up the fence line with the trees, I'm going to need another pop-up mechanism very similar to the first one that I created, except that this one is actually going to get attached to the house. So now that we have a house that is upright, we can continue to add more pop-up mechanisms to it if we want to have more things pop up in front of the house. So for this bit of cardstock, again, it's just a bit of scrap that I'm using. So the width of it ends up being 3/8 of an inch. And the first section that I scored was 1/4 of an inch. That's what I glued to the front of the house. My next section is about an inch, maybe a smidge more than an inch. It started at 1.5 inches, but I left off a score line, so that's what I'm adding right now. I just took my, like a squishy mat, this is my flower forming mat, and using a steel ruler and a bone folder, I just added the extra score line that I was missing. So the distance that you want is basically whatever distance away from your house you want your fence to be. And then your next score line needs to be 1/4 of an inch. And then the last score line, or the last section, just needs to be long enough to glue down. So again, what I'm going to do is just put glue on that very last section. I'm going to fold this down on our middle score line. It's not going to be exactly middle in terms of the length, because I want this fence to be a bit of a distance away from the house. I don't want it to be like super close to the house. So this is a way for you to create custom pop-up mechanism just based on whatever look or aesthetic that you're going for. And then I fold the card down close to make sure that it will ultimately fold flat and everything kind of finds its natural position when it's folded. And once we have that pop-up mechanism in place, then just like how I attached the house to the first pop-up mechanism, I'll attach that picket fence to this new pop-up mechanism. So you can just keep extending. Once you have some things that are upright, you can just keep on adding pop-up mechanisms to create, additional layers or scenes to your card. So I'm using the evergreen trees to just have a little bit more of a solid area to attach to the pop-up mechanism, because this fence is really cool. It's got all of the slats in the fence, and so it looks really cool, but I just want to make sure that it is going to be well secured to the pop-up mechanism. So that is going to kind of cover how you can kind of add multiple layers or little scenes. So I've got a little bit of a foreground and in my picket fencing, and then I've got the midground with my house, and then the background is the pattern paper behind everything. So really fun to create this, and it's not that hard to do. The pop-up mechanism is just a strip of paper with a few score lines in it. So here is a look at that, and you can kind of see all of the dimension and the detailing. And here is how it looks from the side. So you can see how opening the card pulls up both layers of the scene and finishes up my pop-up card. So here's a final recap of all of the cards that I made today. Starting with my flat card, this card features the BETTERPRESS Club Kit of the month. I did some offset glimmering on top of my BETTERPRESS design. I used the BETTERPRESS ink pad to create a sort of faux matte layer around to keep this a truly flat card by my definition. These next two cards also feature the same BETTERPRESS Club of the month and some solid color cardstock as my matte layers. So technically these are my, part of my layered cards today, but I am super excited about this offset glimmering. I really like the look of it, and having that little drop shadow is lots of fun. Then a couple more layered cards. This first one features the Glimmer of the month. I have glimmered it in a very soft pastel satin glimmer foil, and here is the wax seal of the month to finish up this card. I am playing around with this fun technique of scraping off an initial layer of wax and then dropping that seal design into a second color. I love the effect of it, and I'm gonna definitely do more practice on that technique. This layered card features the 3D embossing folder of the month, and you can really see how some of the flowers are more raised than others. Really love that 3D effect. It's just so gorgeous. Then moving on to my interactive card. This card features the small die of the month, which is this very jolly Santa, and I've turned him into a dancing Santa. So with just the addition of a small circle die, I was able to create a dancing Santa, which I thought was a lot of fun, especially since he's already got the legs that are walking. So I thought that was really cute. And my final card today features the large die of the month and is my pop-up card. So here I've got multiple scenes of my pop-up. I've got the foreground of the white picket fence with some trees and that candy cane in the front. I've got in the midground this house that I've converted into a gingerbread house. And then our backdrop is some pattern paper from a previous release by Spellbinders. So really, really fun. I did pull in some past collections to round out this particular card, but I really love how that scene turned out. Thanks for joining me today. I'll leave links to everything in the description box below if you are curious to check out any of the products that I used. And of course, I will have my Spellbinders playlist here. Club Kit new signups or subscriptions open on October 6th. Thanks for joining me today, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye!